Alright, take 3. Jesus Christ. Hello there everyone, welcome back to the channel. My name is Elliot Webber and welcome to the first official preview for the 2025 British Touring Car Championship. Again, something different for this year's previews. I'm going to be doing one video for every team on the 2025 grid, and we're obviously going to be starting off with the reigning Teams Champions NAPA Racing. So as always, let's get straight into this. So, of course, all of you have probably seen already the official NAPA Racing liveries for the 2025 BTCC season. Yep, they revealed 2 liveries yesterday afternoon. One was more blue and yellow, and then the other was more yellow and blue, if you get what I mean. I will put pictures up of the livery from their reveal at the Silverstone Museum last night, and honestly, they're both stunning. They are both really stunning, absolutely gorgeous liveries this year. A huge improvement to last year's liveries. Last year's livery wasn't bad by any stretch. It wasn't a bad livery, but the 2 liveries that they have produced this year are just second to none. They are absolutely awesome, beautiful looking cars, I should say. And also, I won't be surprised if we see a Valvoline livery for 2 of the drivers this year at Silverstone, because that seems to be a tradition now. Valvoline seemingly will be their own livery at some point this year. Again, I'm guessing Silverstone, but we'll just have to wait and see later down the year. Now, it is no change in terms of driver lineup for NAPA Racing. Of course, it was already known that Sutton and Dan Cammish would be on the grid this year, as they are on multi-year deals. Of course, Sutton is here until the end of 2026, so we have got to get used to him. Obviously as well, Dan Cammish, I believe, is on the final year of his deal, unless he's already extended, though we will just have to wait and see. Dan Rowbottom extended his deal with NAPA Racing for another 2 years for this year and next, so obviously we will see Dan Rowbottom at NAPA until at least the end of 2026. And of course, it was announced a couple of weeks ago, or I believe last week, or even this week I think, that Sam Osborne will once again be in the 4th and final NAPA Racing Ford Focus. And again, yes, I'm going to say this again, NAPA Racing will be using the Ford Focus at least for the final time in 2025. Obviously, they have already announced plans to move on to a new manufacturer for 2026 ahead of the 2027 regulations. So that's going to be something interesting to see. I'm sure we'll find that out at some point later this year. But for you Ford fans out there, it will be the swan song, at least for NAPA Racing with this car. I'm sure someone next year will pick up the Ford Focuses for 2026. But now we have to talk about what's going to happen with NAPA Racing this season, because it could be a history-making season for NAPA Racing, specifically for one of their drivers, their #1 driver in the team, and that is Sutton. Yes, Sutton could well and truly make history this year. He could become a 5-time British Touring Car Champion, and that is a serious possibility. It was a possibility last year, but unfortunately Ash did have some bad luck during the 2024 season and unfortunately missed out on that record-breaking 5th championship. For those of you who are new to BTCC, Sutton currently holds the record for the most BTCC titles, with Andy Rouse and Colin Turkington, all three of those drivers holding 4 BTCC titles to their respective names. Sutton won his first championship in 2017 with Subaru/Team BMR. He then won his 2nd and 3rd championships in 2020 and 2021 with Laser Tools Racing, and he won his 4th championship with NAPA Racing in 2023. So, first off, can Ash do it? Yes, on talent alone, Ash can become a 5-time champion. You know, if things had gone his way last year, he arguably would already be a 5-time champion. So, of course, the question is not, can he be a 5-time champion? The question is, will he be a 5-time champion? And that is something that is going to be very hard to predict. We're not here to talk about the other teams, but of course we will talk about them. Ash, he will once again, I think Ash will 100% be in this championship fight. You'd be a very silly man or woman to discredit Ash's talent. He will 100% be in the championship fight this year. Again, he will be in that championship fight going into finals day at Brands Hatch in October. And again, I would not be surprised if he will be a 5-time champion. Personally, I can't predict it. I don't know if Ash can do it. Part of me wants to, only because it is history that we would be witnessing. And Ash is someone who seemingly rewrites the record books in BTCC. He is already the youngest ever BTCC champion, winning his first championship at just 23 years old. He is the youngest ever champion under 30. Of course. The youngest ever 2-time champion under 30, the youngest ever 3-time champion, the youngest ever 4-time champion, the first driver to win 3 championships under 30, as I've just mentioned. So truly a one-of-a-kind driver is Ash Sutton, and again, I would not be surprised if he is in the championship fight this year, and I would not be surprised if we are going to be calling Ash Sutton a 5-time champion going in to 2026. But now let's talk about his 3 teammates, starting off with Dan Cammish. Now, Dan Cammish had a very good season in 2024. He took only 1 race win. He only won 1 race, but his consistency was phenomenal. I think he had 5 podiums in a row at some point during the season, and he was so consistent that he was actually mathematically kind of in the championship fight. Not during finals day, but throughout the majority of the season, he was mathematically always up there. And, you know, whilst of course he wasn't winning those races that he arguably could have and should have done to be considered a legitimate contender, he was so consistent that he just kept clawing away, that when the likes of Jake Hill, Turkington, Ingram, and even his teammate Sutton had bad races, he was always there to collect the points, not just for NAPA Racing, but also himself. So if Dan Cammish can have a similar season this year to last year, only with a bit more silverware and a couple more top steps on the podium, a couple more race wins, I would not be surprised if Dan Cammish is also in with a shout of the championship this year. But again, he needs to start winning races. Consistency will only get you so far in this championship, although yes, the likes of Colin Turkington and Tom Ingram, they've won races by just being consistent, and they've won championships by being consistent. That's not really the name of the game anymore. Look at Jake Hill. He won the championship and he had the most wins of anyone last year. So, you know, those race wins, they do matter. They do count, especially in recent years where, of course, we haven't had as many drivers racing. We haven't had as many numbers on the grid as we did about a decade ago. But even so, as I say, race wins do matter, and hopefully Dan Cammish can produce more race wins to his name, and hopefully he can finally get that championship that he has been clawing to get since 2019. So yeah, my personal predictions for Dan Cammish, 100% he is going to be in with multiple podiums throughout the season, no doubt about it. I will be very surprised if Dan Cammish goes winless in 2025 as well. I think that bad luck that he had in 2022 and 2023 has finally sizzled out, touch wood. So yeah, hopefully Dan Cammish has been ridden of all that bad luck, and he finally can have an almost perfect season, and hopefully, yes, he can be winning more races this year. And I do think he will. I do think he will be winning some races. You know, he's got a lot of strong tracks. Thruxton, he goes well around. Croft, he goes well around. Silverstone and whatnot. Brands Hatch is a great track for him, even Donington Park as well. So there is a ton of great tracks that Dan Cammish performs well at, so no doubt we will be seeing his name at the front again in 2025, and no doubt he will be the sort of the number 2 to Ash Sutton, and even the number 1, because let's not forget, Dan Cammish, on his day, Cammish is probably the best driver on the grid. I think a lot of people seem to forget that sometimes. You know, of course, his name does get overshadowed by the likes of Ingram and Sutton and Jake Hill. But even so, you got to look at it. There were some races that he was the best driver on the grid last year. So I think, no doubt about it, Dan Cammish, when he's in his zone and when he's got the car where he wants it, Dan Cammish is the fastest and best driver on the grid. So here's hoping that Dan Cammish once again will be winning more races. Now moving on to the third driver on NAPA Racing's roster, and that is Dan Rowbottom. Dan Rowbottom is someone who is, the best way to put it is he is a roller coaster driver, I will say. Some days he is similar to Dan Cammish. On his day, when the car is where he wants it, Dan Rowbottom is arguably one of the best drivers on the grid. He has his high days, and his highest highs are contradicted by his lowest lows, if that makes sense. You know, when he has an off day, he really has an off day. You know, there were some races last year in 2023 where Dan Rowbottom was up there contending for podiums and contending for race wins, but then there were some races where Dan Rowbottom was failing to get into the points or struggling to get into the top 10. Now, of course, we know the Ford Focus was nowhere near as dominant as it was in 2023. So yeah, but I do think Dan, once he gets that consistency under him, I do think Dan Rowbottom can be a regular contender for podiums and race wins. We've seen it before. Robo can win races. He is a proven race winner in the BTCC. My personal opinion, I don't think he's quick enough or good enough to be a contender for the championship, but no doubt, as I've said, on his day, he will get the odd race win and he will be on the podium, and that will be my personal prediction for him. I do see Dan Rowbottom winning a race in 2025, most likely from a reverse grid, but again, as I keep saying, I do think Robo has got some natural pace. You know, I think Thruxton last year, you know, in qualifying, he was one of the best, you know, over one lap. Rowbottom seems to be quite a capable driver, so I think no doubt we'll be seeing Dan Rowbottom in the quick six a few times this year, and I will not be surprised if Robo is on the podium. I will not be surprised if he wins at least one race. I'm predicting one race just for Robo, so who knows, maybe he could get more than that, you never know. And yeah, I think if Robo can end 2025 in the top 10 in the championship, that'd be a solid season for Robo. And as well, if he can stay close to Cammish and Sutton, and even on some days beating Cammish, and even on his highest highs, as I've mentioned, he does have high highs, maybe even on his day he could be contending and even beating Ash Sutton occasionally. But he doesn't have to. I think we all know Ash Sutton is one of the best drivers on the grid. He's one of the best touring car drivers in the world. So, you know, he doesn't have to be beating him, but of course it doesn't help. It you know, doesn't harm Robo if he is beating Sutton. But yeah, so yeah, for Robo, multiple podiums, regular top 10s, getting an odd race win, that would be a solid season for Dan Rowbottom. Now, the final and fourth driver on my list, Sam Osborne. Now, Sam is, I think a lot of people will agree with me if I say that Sam Osborne is the Lance Stroll of BTCC. And I don't just mean that because his dad owns NAPA Racing and he owns and runs the team. I don't just mean it in that context. I also mean it in that Sam is not a bad driver in any way, shape or form. Sam is not a terrible driver. It's just the fact that he has better drivers around him. You know, you will not see Sam Osborne contending for podiums every single race, but we have seen it more. We've seen it more so in recent years since Sam Osborne joined NAPA Racing, or since he joined Motorbase, when they were known as that when he joined. We've seen Sam where, again, when the car's right and on his day, Sam Osborne is in the top 10. I actually didn't realise this, but Sam had 9 top 10s in the last 10 races last year. That is an impressive stat, and I think that is something that Sam is going to take into this year. You know, 9 top 10. Okay, yes, there were only 20 drivers, so getting a top 10 is sort of 50% of the work in BTCC last year. But still, that's very impressive. And as someone who obviously, you know, has had a ton of critics over his BTCC career, having 9 top 10s in 10 races is something to be proud of, even in BTCC, because we all know how hard it is to just be competitive in this championship. So no doubt, I think Sam has improved. I think ever since he got his first podium and currently his only podium in his BTCC career, I think there has been genuine improvement from Sam Osborne. I think the Sam Osborne in 2025 is much better than the Sam Osborne we saw in 2019 in his debut season. So I think no doubt if Sam Osborne can keep that gradual progression into this year and throughout this year, I think no doubt we'll be seeing more of Sam Osborne in 2025. Whether or not he'll be where Cammish and Sutton are, I don't think that's going to happen. Especially as I mentioned, there are also faster, you know, we've got the Hyundais and the BMWs and the Toyotas for NAPA to worry about. But I think, again, if Sam Osborne can get in that bottom half of the top 10 and be even a contender for reverse grid races and take points off of the likes of Ingram, off of the likes of Jake Hill and Aidan Moffat, and off of the likes of maybe not his teammates, but maybe sometimes if Sam Osborne is one of the drivers selected to score points for the Teams Championship, then being ahead of Rowbottom and Cammish and Sutton would greatly help NAPA and Sam, obviously, himself. I think, I think once again, we are going to see more of Sam Osborne, and this is quite a bold prediction, but I do think 2025 will be Sam Osborne's best season. Maybe not in terms of results, but I do think in terms of performance. And let's not forget, he's had Rory Butcher in his ear for the past, for the second half of last year. So that clearly that helps. So maybe if Rory Butcher is once again in the Napa garage helping Sam Osborne, then no doubt Sam will be improving. So to break it all down, Ash Sutton, he'll be in the championship fight once again. And again, I will not be surprised if we are calling Ash Sutton a 5-time champion and to go down as statistically the greatest of all time if he gets that 5th championship. Only statistically, because the actual conversation, that will go on forever. As for Dan Cammish, again, as I've mentioned, regular podiums, regular top 10s, getting race wins, being an outsider for the championship. Who knows, maybe even Dan Cammish can break into the top 4 this year. I think that'll be a good season for Dan. As for Dan Rowbottom, regular top 10s, regular podiums, hopefully, getting a race win. Solid season for Dan Rowbottom. And then for Sam, gradual progression, top 10s, an odd podium, possibly a race win, could be on the cards if circumstances provide that. But that will be quite a bold prediction, and that's no disrespect to Sam Osborne. And as for NAPA themselves as a team, I will not be surprised if they are taking a 4th Teams Championship in a row. NAPA Racing have been in BTCC for 3 years and they've taken 3 Teams Championships. So it's been a solid history already for NAPA Racing, and who knows, they could be taking the drivers and teams titles again in 2025. But let me know your thoughts in the comments below, guys. What are your predictions for NAPA Racing UK this year for the BTCC? Can Ash Sutton do it? Can Ash Sutton make history and become a 5-time
on the 5-time
British touring car champion? And also, what are your thoughts on the 2 liveries for NAPA Racing UK this year? Again, in my opinion, beautiful. Thank you guys for watching. Of course, if you're new around here, be sure to like this video, share with your mates as well, because it of course does help my channel grow, and of course press that subscribe button, because we are firmly on the road to 400 subscribers. Thank you guys for watching, and I will see all of you in the next one. Goodbye. Holy crap, I freaking yapped on for there, Jesus.